Stay tuned as Jon Mueller, a licensed professional counselor with over 25 years of professional experience treating both survivors and sexual predators, shares his insights on this edition of Predator Watch.
I'm most appreciative of the opportunity to share with you all from my professional clinical background about the serious concerns I have about the legislation you're considering, because you're being led to believe that legislation, erroneously called anti-conversion therapy legislation, will actually serve to protect vulnerable gender-confused kids. And as a therapist who has extensive history working with severely emotionally disturbed kids in the foster care system and those in community-based and residential treatment, I come before you to urge you to stop this legislation, as it will actually have the exact opposite effect of what you're being told. It will actually open the door for these young people, a majority of whom have serious untreated mental health issues, to be manipulated, exploited, and harmed.
A lot of my trans identity was connected with hating myself.
And I used being trans as a way to deal with all of the things that I was feeling.
But I do have these other people in my head. Actually, part of what led me to transition is a bunch of these personalities are male. These facets of my personality are male or male presenting. And that sort of made me feel like, well, I'm everything, you know, like I'm not just a woman, I'm a man too. Almost like this non-binary type thing.
But a lot of what drove me to transition in the first place was linked to a lot of mental health issues and a lot of stuff that I had going on.
Nobody in the medical or psychological field ever tried to dissuade me to offer other options.
The fact that I was so obsessed, this should have been some sort of red flag to someone somewhere.
There were all these red flags, and I honestly wish that somebody had pointed them out to me, and then I might not have transitioned in the first place.
60 Minutes did a powerful piece on how these kids are being targeted and how these kids are being harmed.
How many of you feel that you were blindly affirmed?
I didn't get enough pushback on transitioning. I went for 2 appointments, and after the second one, I had my letter to go get on cross-sex hormones. 2 visits? That's it?
And the therapist that I found only required 1 therapy session in order for her to be comfortable writing this letter for me.
The therapist that I got, she actually told me that she could get me all the paperwork that I needed to transition that after my first session.
But I mean, of course, hindsight, because back when I wanted to take hormones, I thought Planned Parenthood, oh my God, this is like a godsend. I don't have to go, because I didn't want to talk to a therapist. So I don't have to jump through any hoops. I don't have to do anything. I just walked in and got it.
I wanted to find ways of dealing with my gender issues that aren't medically transitioning, and those ways weren't presented to me. The only solution that was presented was chopping your breasts off, injecting yourself with hormones, and becoming a man.
I think it's criminal. I really do. I think we are on the forefront of seeing something that people will read in history and go, how in the fuck did that happen? I think there's going to be people that are going to be thrown in jail soon.
New Health Gender Affirmation Surgery Program is one of the few in the Midwest, having treated roughly 200 patients in just 2 years.
I think that we're going to discover some pretty nasty things, some nasty marketing that we're doing to children. For the first time in history, a marginalized group has a $ attached to it.
The founder of the program says 20,000 people identify as transgender in Indiana.
It's because there's a $ attached to it. It's the fact that, Lupron makes $24,000 a year for every child that gets on hormone blockers.
Right now, we get between 70 and 90 referrals a month.
So if we take a study that was done in a very small area of the UK that had 97 kids, and we fast forward several years, and that 97 goes to over 4,000, we're talking about $2 million worth of revenue to over $100 million in revenue. Now multiply that by the world. This is $1 billion industry.
Without insurance, it would have run, I think, around $100,000. That's what they all billed. But I think there's something weird with, like, you know, if you're not on insurance, then they'll bill you like slightly less, but because they know you're on insurance, they bill you more, something like that. I'm not really sure how that works. Basically, insurance seems like it really came in and saved my butt from having to pay $100K in medical bills, because that is utterly ridiculous.
And we're going to have a suicide epidemic that this world has never seen. And the people that are pushing medical transition, like the Susie Greens, the Mermaids, the Luprons, the Dr. Cranes, all these people that are monetizing things, it has nothing to do with love. It has to do with they have a dollar sign on their head. And that is a really sad place to be in society, because if we get to the point where we throw kids under the bus for money, we might as well just, come out of our houses and live with animals.
That's the same incidence as type 1 diabetes, so this is perhaps a much more common condition than we ever thought before.
I mean, in 2015, it was worth 9.9 something billion dollars, the LGBT market. Now it's worth $3.6 trillion in 5 years. I mean, that's wild.
So what's my message as a professional who's worked extensively with vulnerable minors with severe mental health issues? Such minors need more choices in qualified ethical therapists, not fewer. This legislation will cause highly trained ethical therapists to simply opt out, and therefore kids will have fewer choices. Licensed professionals are not going to place their livelihood on the line. And trust me, no normal therapist seeks to convert anyone. The goal is to help the client, no matter the age, clarify their own goals and improve their own self-esteem by self-acceptance, not by eradicating themselves. To help them think through the long-term consequences of their decisions, and to ensure the safety and protection of kids, not to reframe red flags of sexual abuse or mental health issues in terms of gender confusion, which will end up fast-tracking these kids toward medical treatments that will leave them forever changed, damaged, or scarred.
I thought that being trans was making me want to kill myself. But if I had been going to a good therapist, if I had been going to school, if I had had friends and had meaningful relationships with people outside of the internet, I know that I would have been able to reconcile my female identity with myself the way that I was. I was just living so disconnected from my body and so disconnected from who I really was.
I've produced a 40-minute documentary called Understanding the Trans Movement, which covers additional key information and key concerns about how these kids are not being treated in a clinically appropriate manner. I encourage each of you to watch that before you cast your vote.
You've been listening to Predator Watch, dedicated to shining the light of truth about the nature of the most sophisticated of sexual predators most likely to target places where victims are most easily accessed. For Jon Mueller and the entire team, thanks for listening.